Senator Paul said that that your vote was a bailout for Alaska at the expense of the rest of the country.
Oh my God.
That's what Senator Paul said.
My question was easy.
Senator, we've got the...
I didn't say it, ma'am. I'm just asking for your response.
My response is I have an obligation to the people of the state of Alaska. And I live up to that every single day. I fight for my state's interests, and I make sure that Alaskans are understood. I work hard to take care of a state that has more unique situations, more unique people, and it's just different. And so when people suggest that federal dollars go to one of our 50 states in a, quote, bailout, I find that offensive. I advocated for my state's interests. I will continue to do that, and I will make no excuses for doing that. Do I like this bill? No, because I tried to take care of Alaska's interests. But I know that in many parts of the country, there are Americans that are not going to be advantaged by this bill. I don't like that. I don't like the fact that we moved through an artificial deadline, an artificial timeline to produce something to meet a deadline rather than to actually try to produce the best bill for the country. But when I saw the direction that this is going, you can either say, I don't like it, not try to help my state, or you can roll up your sleeves.
That was Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski, the deciding vote for the GOP's disastrous budget bill, rationalizing her decision to inflict upon America a budget that strips healthcare away from 17 million Americans, takes food assistance away from at least 3 million Americans, eliminates school meal access for more than 18 million kids, adds $3.5 trillion to the national debt, sends electricity costs surging, and substantially raises healthcare premiums for older adults with ACA coverage. All to be able to give some more tax cuts to the wealthiest Americans. But hey, as far as Lisa Murkowski is concerned, I guess as long as a few people in her home state of Alaska are taken care of, then it's worth it, huh? This comment by Murkowski comes in response to Rand Paul saying, quote, there was a time in which they had to make a decision, dealing with me and reducing the debt ceiling or giving pork and subsidies to Alaska. They chose to add some more pork and subsidies for Alaska to secure that. And the reality is that she did trade away Americans' healthcare, food assistance, energy costs, and the deficit for a few handouts that benefit her home state. She was able to score some tribal exemptions on food stamp cuts and $50 billion to offset hospital closures, which frankly will do nothing in the face of over $1 trillion in healthcare cuts overall that she literally also voted for. In other words, she can feign outrage at being asked about the consequences of her own actions, but her theatrics here do not make those consequences any less real. She will go to sleep tonight knowing that she was the deciding vote on a bill that's going to gut the last line of defense for tens of millions of Americans. She'll be why millions go hungry. She'll be why electricity bills become unaffordable. She'll be why the debt explodes. But hey, as long as you got a nice carve out for what, whaling captains in Alaska, then I guess it's worth it, right? Murkowski released a statement saying, in part, quote, let's not kid ourselves, this has been an awful process, a frantic rush to meet an artificial deadline that has tested every limit of this institution. While we have worked to improve the present bill for Alaska, it is not good enough for the rest of our nation, and we all know it. My sincere hope is that this is not the final product. This bill needs more work across chambers and is not ready for the president's desk. We need to work together to get this right. This bill needs more work across chambers? I'm sorry, but what? You literally voted for it. This is the bill. This wasn't a working session. This was it. It's passed the Senate, thanks to Murkowski. The House may issue changes to the bill that may go back to the Senate, but as far as Murkowski is concerned, she gave her stamp of approval to the final version of this bill in its current form. She decided that a bill gutting healthcare for tens of millions of Americans was acceptable because she got a few carve-outs for some local hospitals that'll be decimated anyway as the result of the same legislation. That's like securing a couple of fire hydrants in a bill that also sets the house on fire. Maybe instead of adding provisions to make the damage less bad, you should just not vote for the thing in the first place. If you feel the need to clean up the mess before it happens, maybe that's a point worth considering. But taking a step back here, I think back to July of 2017, almost a decade ago, but politics was still just as acrimonious then as it is today. John McCain was in very much the same position as Murkowski is here. He would have been the deciding vote to repeal the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. It would have kicked 30 million Americans off of their health care, not dissimilar to how nearly 20 million Americans will lose Medicaid coverage as the result of this bill. Trump pressured McCain, Republicans pressured McCain, and when it came time to vote, this is what happened. He voted no. He was capable of putting country over party at that moment. I don't think that Mitch McConnell's Republican Senate conference was on any planet less partisan or far right than it is today. In fact, it's largely the same members. And yet, even then, John McCain was able to think about the impact on millions upon millions of Americans. I'm not here to lionize John McCain, but I can certainly acknowledge that he showed heroism in that moment. And yet now, Lisa Murkowski had the opportunity to do the same thing, to be remembered in very much the same way that John McCain is remembered right now. And instead of standing up for the millions of Americans across the country who will suffer in addition to the tens of thousands of Alaskans, her own constituents who will suffer, she allowed herself to be bought out with a few fucking lame carve-outs. In a party that was already hurting for heroes, this really is a brand new low for the GOP. Lincoln's party once fought to free the slaves, now reduced to fucking over the nation's poorest and most vulnerable to hand themselves a tax cut. And there was Lisa Murkowski casting the deciding vote to codify the largest transfer of wealth from the poor to the rich in American history. So I'm sorry if I'm not adequately sympathetic to Lisa Murkowski's plight here, but she knows what she's doing. She's not dumb. She understands the consequences of her actions. She says this vote was difficult. She voted for it. That's not difficult. That's easy. Caving to Trump is not courageous. It's not hard. That's the simple way out. You don't get credit for doing the hard thing when you don't actually do the hard thing. Someone ought to let Lisa Murkowski know that if she wants sympathy, she should try doing something to actually earn it. As for the rest of us, please know that this is not over. Call your member of the House and urge them to vote no on this bill. 202-224-3121. That's the switchboard. Find your member of Congress. This is the time to act. Do what Lisa Murkowski couldn't and fight to protect the most vulnerable among us. Before you go, if you enjoyed this content and you want to see more and support independent media, please subscribe to this channel. The subscribe button will be right here on the screen. But second, the reality is that we are now in a political environment where this administration can lean on any of the social media platforms to suppress certain voices if they don't like critical coverage. That means my longevity here is in the hands of a few tech billionaires who are already making it clear that they are willing to cater to this administration. To that end, signing up for my newsletter is a way for me to reach you directly if that ever becomes necessary. I'll put the link right here on the screen as well, so please sign up. It's free, but there's also an option to do a paid subscription if you'd like to support me and my team. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for watching.